How's it going, guys? And welcome back to the Beyond the Arc podcast, where we are getting into the tail end of the NBA season. It is conference finals time. I feel like a lot's been happening since the last time we recorded. We did only record about a week ago, but I feel like a lot has been happening. We've got the conference finals. Last time we recorded, it was before the game sixes of the semi-finals. So we're going to be going through all of that, plus the beginnings of the conference finals. Today is Friday, the 20th of May. We're recording this pretty early for us. So if we don't feel so energized, it's because Sully woke up about half an hour ago. So
I will be this podcast will give me the energy. By the
okay,
end, I'll be bouncing.
okay. Well, I'll hold you to that. We'll see what the deal is come the end of it. How are we feeling today, Sully? Man, have you managed to catch any of the conference finals so far?
No, I've been hoping to, but obviously, like with the times over here, like it's hard to catch on. But I'm gonna try and catch the Golden State game tonight. It's a 2 o'clock tip off, so I'm gonna definitely try and catch that one, or at least like maybe the first half or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's been game one was pretty much a blowout. I mean, there's
Mm,
been quite a few blowouts so far.
yeah,
Not really been that close in the
I was
playoffs
gonna
so
say
far.
not been like close games at the moment. The first three that have happened, they've just all been like one team completely blowing the other one out of the water.
But I guess before we get into our talk of that, and before we even get into the talk of the conference semi-finals, make sure that you guys are liking and subscribing to the video. Make sure you're commenting, engaging with the content, and make sure that you're sharing it out no matter what you're listening on. And I think without further ado, we should probably just get straight into some semi-final roundups because, like I said, the all of the semi-finals hadn't finished the last
Mm,
time we recorded. Um, Miami and Philly and Golden State and Memphis shut it out in six.
yeah,
And the other two games, Boston, Milwaukee, and Phoenix, Dallas, shut it out in seven. I think one of the main talking points that I want to talk about though is the Philly game. I mean, I think Embiid just being out for the first two games kind of just made it a little bit harder for Philly,
mm,
and also James Harden didn't step it up.
yeah.
Uh,
It's crazy because like a lot of people saw that trade happen, including us, and we were like, "Oh, damn, Philly have really gone and pulled a robbery off here." But now, like, I mean, obviously, we've not even seen any Ben Simmons action at all, and it looks like it's a very even trade at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. We are gonna have to wait to see how Ben
Mm.
Simmons impacts that team before.
And I mean, it's hard for him to be worse than James Harden right now. Like in terms of impact on the team, like it. I feel like this time next year we're going to be saying, well, kind of the Nets kind of won that trade, like they kind of pulled
Maybe,
off the robbery there.
yeah. Because I mean, I think Ben Simmons' upside at the moment is so much better than James Harden. You know, James Harden's
Mm.
declining in years. Could you potentially say he's past his prime now? Maybe. Um, I mean, Ben Simmons, he doesn't shoot much in the playoffs, but James Harden pulled out 9 field goal attempts, um, in that game six. It's not what you want in the in your win or go home kind of game from your
100%,
second star.
100%. And I mean, like the thing is, he was brought in mainly for this purpose. This playoff time, you're gonna step up, and he was meant to be the reason to get them over that edge, which is usually conference finals or conference semifinals. And the one thing he was kind of brought in for, he didn't even do,
No,
which is it's kind of it. They look at it like, okay, well, what was the point? Because truthfully, last year, so they ended up conference semis, I believe, lost out. Year before, finals, I believe, lost out. Like they can never get past the conference stage.
hmm
So when they brought in Harden, everyone assumed, okay,
yeah. I mean,
it's
I
finals
was
time.
saying that Philly are gonna win the chip when
Yeah, I
Harden
mean,
came in.
and they were looking strong as well when them two were together. Everyone was like, okay, then. We were both like, oh well, that's wraps for that conference. Everyone knows who's going to the final now. But I mean, just as easy as that, they kind of flipped it and said, actually, well, we're still not amazing, and it's it's kind of like how does what do they need to do now? Like what more can they do? Maybe they're just one of those teams that are never going to be able to get past that little stretch.
Well, that's what I was going to pose the question to. James
Uh,
Harden is reports saying that James Harden is going to exercise his player option for next season, so he will most likely remain a 76er. So I think they're going to try and run it back next year.
hmm.
And then Harden is a free agent and open for a max contract in 2023.
I mean, who's paying Harden the max though?
It's James Harden, though, man. I feel like you can't look at this season as something that will define James Harden. I think it's next season that will.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
obviously, you have teams that try and lock down their stars
Hmm.
like a year before they go out of contract.
Hmm.
I think it's just not going to happen this year. They're not going to give him the max this year. They
Hmm.
can't give him the max this year. I think they probably won't even try and give him the max next year because that's an awful contract. Harden's going to be, what, like 33
Yeah.
when that contract gets in? A 4-year max contract. That's an awful contract.
Yeah. No
See
one's
him
no one
earning,
paying him the max. Absolutely nobody.
I mean, and you never know. I think if Philly want to keep him and if he does well this season, if we see glimpses of
Hmm.
the old James Harden, the Houston Rockets James Harden, I mean, in a way, Brooklyn Nets James Harden, he did all right last season for them.
Yeah.
Um, see glimpses of that, then you're gonna feel more inclined to give him what he wants if he wants to stay, especially if you do get to the NBA Finals and perhaps fall at the last hurdle next season. But in doing that, you've got further than you have done under Joel Embiid,
Hmm.
and under the process. The process has led you to this point. Maybe give Harden the max, and therefore you can push on and perhaps win a chip. But I just think even giving him like a 4-year max
Hmm.
contract at the age that he ain't LeBron James.
Yeah.
Nobody in this league can do it like LeBron James for
Hmm.
as long. Nobody in this league has the longevity of LeBron James. He isn't going to be earning that money.
Yeah.
It might turn into like a John Wall situation where obviously John Wall has just had injury problems and
Hmm.
stuff like that. He didn't play it all this season and he still made about 40 odd mil. He was still one of the highest earners in the NBA. So I think Harden's going to want that max. I just don't think Philly are going to give it to him, especially if he plays, sorry, as bad next season as he has done this season. You can't have your second star shooting 9 field goals
No, especially when
in
he
a.
was brought in there to back up the points for Embiid because nobody else was really scoring like that. It was more of the fact that like people like Tyrese Maxey showed up more than Harden, which is crazy because like compared to Harden, nobody knows who that guy is. Like he was a brought in to do. He was a role player, and Harden was a number two, arguably maybe number one scorer because Embiid's more of a center, obviously. But still, they're both like scorers, and still, he couldn't even outscore the role players in his team, which is embarrassing, really. Like on his part, he should be doing better, and he knows that too. And the Sixers know that too. Like they not going to be oblivious to the fact that they're a guy who they made this big trade on the deadline day and everything, and everyone was going crazy about it. Severely underperformed, and if he does that again next year, he's not even getting half a max. He's not getting no amazing contract that he wants. Like he might not even stay a 76er this time next year if he performs the way he performed next year, because that for someone of his level, someone that's got the like quality that we've seen him have, what he did this year was like almost like it was like a protest to try and leave the team, but he's just joined them. Like you see players play bad when they don't want to be there anymore. I don't know why he was playing bad. Like, I don't know what his reason was, but whatever it is, he needs to really pick it up next year if he wants any sort of like good contract, either at the Sixers or someone else.
Yeah, definitely. So, do we think It's too early to say that his career's done.
Yeah, it's too early. It's too early, but there was a massive decline that we saw this year.
Yeah,
But like any quality player, he can turn it around. He just needs to figure out where his issues lie and fix them up. And because obviously he, like we said, he's the number two guy, so they will work around it. They won't like, say okay and just push him to the side. They will work around this to try and make him better because obviously that's why they brought him in, for him to make them better. So
yeah.
whatever they do, they might get a couple more role players in to accommodate him. I don't know, but they will work around it. They will try and help him, and we'll see what happens. You never know; it might end up working out.
Yeah. So ultimately, the Miami Heat did progress in that series. They're facing the Boston Celtics at the moment. That's 1-1 in the conference finals. Miami knocked out Philly, and Boston managed to overcome Giannis and the Bucks. They did a decent job locking him up game 7, but
Mm,
you've got to say their shooting kind of just overshadowed all of that. They had a really good shooting night. Grant Williams, GOAT.
Grant
Uh,
Williams was amazing,
I don't know whose plan it was to allow Grant Williams to shoot like 18 threes in the game 7, but
but it
look,
worked.
it worked, especially given that he'd gone 3 of 14 in like the last 3 games.
Mm,
I don't know who decided that game 7 is the right time to experiment with this game plan, but hey, it proved that it worked, and everyone else around them was doing well. Marcus Smart, who ultimately missed game 1 of the conference finals, did bits in game 2. Um, he did well, and Giannis is going home. Um,
it's crazy.
the reigning champs knocked out in the semi-finals.
There will be a new champion this year, but it's crazy because like I saw this thing, and a lot of people last year said, "Oh, it was the easiest year for a smaller team to win the chip because there was a lot of injuries." And then everyone kind of argued against it this year in the regular season. And look at how well the Suns did in the regular season. Look at how well the Bucks did. But now both the teams in the finals last year are out before the conference finals. It's like you can't argue against it, but it's hard to argue for it as well. Like, and don't get me wrong, I think both teams that went out in Game Sevens were amazing teams who just were unlucky. But I mean, Giannis really did not step it up in that Game Seven. The game that because obviously when we see the Bucks and when it's time to step up, he's always the guy to drop 45 points and get 63 rebounds and 212 assists. Like he, Boston did a really good job of just keeping him quiet in the corner. And I was watching that Game Seven, and I was like, damn, they're not giving him a break. They were not giving him a like second for a good look or nothing. And it just shows like it shows the level he's on, because it shows like when you're that good, and because there was times where he was double team, triple team, like there was about 4 players open, but Giannis was like, no, this is me. But they just didn't let him do it. Like, and I guess that shows the level he's on. Like the fact that they're just like everyone's pure job is okay, stop Giannis, forget the rest of them, stop him. And the thing is, if you stop him, the whole team stops working, as we saw, because Bucks got blown out in Game 7 as well. It wasn't even a close look. And when I guess when the lead player gets closed down as well as he got closed down, the whole castle just falls apart, and that's exactly what happened. But I gotta give my props to Boston for that game, because although Milwaukee had a poor shooting night, Boston also had a great night defensively. Like they were rebounding everything, they were swatting away shots, they were just doing everything. Like, and it got to a point. I think it's halfway through the third. I was like, yeah, there's no way they're losing this now. And then they just carried on. I think like 5 minutes into the game, they just put on a whole fresh set of 5 players and just did, because they knew it was one, and that was the fourth quarter wasn't even half done yet, which is kind of mad. You don't really see that, especially in a game 7 of a semi final. But
Yeah,
you,
I
like I say,
mean, Yeah.
You got
Held held Milwaukee to 4 of 33 from 3-point land as a team. Boston themselves shot 55 threes that game and made 22 of them. When you shoot 18 more threes than the opposition,
you're
hits
gonna
sound like
get more.
I would say it hits sound like a bit of an obvious analyst here, but
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get more. You were talking about injuries there. You said last season the injuries potentially helped Milwaukee and Phoenix get to a final. Are we saying that this year it's kind of stopped Milwaukee getting to a final? I think if Chris Middleton is in that rotation, we know Chris Middleton likes a game against Boston. He's hit many a game winner against the Celtics in his career. Um, I think if Chris Middleton's in that, especially Milwaukee being 3-2 up, going back to the Fiserv Forum for Game 6, I think maybe having Middleton there helps Milwaukee close that out. But you play with what you've got. In the end,
True.
Mike Budenholzer didn't adjust well enough to the fact that the Celtics were locking their guys up on the perimeter and hitting down their threes. He didn't adjust well enough, and ultimately it sent Milwaukee home, which I think a lot of people. I predicted that Boston would knock them out, but I think a lot of people at the start of the season, maybe even in February, if you'd have told me that Boston would have knocked Milwaukee out, I'd have called you ridiculous
Mm.
and stupid and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like maybe in a way, not having Chris Middleton has helped Boston there, but I feel like the Celtics sweeping the Nets, knocking out the Bucks, they're showing that they are championship caliber.
100,000%. I can completely agree with you on that one because obviously they stepped into these playoffs like big underdogs. Obviously, despite the fact that they were a great team defensively, they were still massive underdogs. No one even thought that they would get the sweep on the Nets. Like, I can't say I saw anyone predict that. And then to beat Milwaukee, especially as a full series, which we know can be like exhausting and obviously especially when it's day after day. And I mean they did it, and that just shows they got through like arguably two of the most challenging teams, because obviously on the Nets you had the arguably two of the best scorers in the league, and then against Milwaukee, I mean, you had the champions, arguably the best player in the league, and they got through all of them. Who's to say they can't beat Miami? Like,
Yeah,
no diss to Miami. Miami are a good team, but are they on the level that the Bucks are on?
yeah,
Probably not.
probably not. No,
Probably
I
not.
mean, I think Boston were a bad third quarter in the first game, away from being 2 up, going
Mm,
back to Boston potentially. I mean, not liked. I've always not really backed the Heat.
yeah.
We'll move on to the conference finals now. I haven't really backed the Heat, but I think there's one thing that I can say that a lot of people will agree with me. Playoff Jimmy Butler is one of the best players in the NBA.
He's
This
amazing.
guy, ever since, well, I think he has shown it in the past, but ever since that bubble year 2020, he's shown that he can be called upon to lead his team in the playoffs, even though they don't really have another star. Bam Adebayo doesn't really get used as much in the playoffs. He doesn't shoot much. Kyle Lowry's been injured, but I don't really feel like Kyle Lowry would have made a difference. If I'm honest with you,
Yeah.
he's a bit past it. They've got a few decent players. Like Tyler Heroes. He's been putting up decent
Mm,
shots, getting decent points. But Jimmy Butler dropping that 41 in game one, and that pretty much carried his team over the line. Miami won game one, and you were saying to me, maybe. I remember you messaging me, maybe we shouldn't be sleeping on Miami, but then I said Jimmy Butler is probably gonna have to average 40
yeah, and you're
if
absolutely right. That's the
if he
thing.
if he wants to knock him out, because ultimately Boston turned it on for game two, hit their threes, and blew Miami out in their own court.
It's mad, really, when you think about it, because, like you said, Jimmy will have to average about 40. And if he drops 41 in that second game, they're either not losing or it's a much closer game. Like, there's only a few points in it, and it's kind of disappointing to see that no one else can really step it up. Like you said, don't like there's Tyler here off the bench and everything, but I mean, 20 points off the bench is nice, but really you need more when if nobody else is really getting points like that. And I think that ultimately will be probably a big factor in Boston probably beating Miami in this series.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't watched any of the Boston
Mm.
Miami games yet, and I don't really watch Miami as much. But I don't really understand why Bam Adebayo is only taking 4-6 shots in a playoff game.
And to be honest, like to say the dominant player that he is, you'd think that he'd be shooting a bit more.
And yes, obviously Jimmy Butler is gonna shoot about 66% ish from the
Mm.
field in these games, but how long before the hero ball per se doesn't really work out? You know, I've watched as a Bulls fan, I've watched someone who is goated from the mid range try and take all of these shots and potentially not use some of the other people on his team as
Mm.
well as he could in DeMar DeRozan. And I feel like, is Jimmy potentially doing that too? I mean, I'm not hating on Jimmy. I like Jimmy as a player, you know, former Chicago guy. I'm rooting for him. I just feel like he just doesn't have enough. Maybe he doesn't have enough trust in his teammates. You know, we have seen that Jimmy has had some issues with teammates in the past. Not
Mm.
saying that that's happened at the Heat. Um, Maybe he just doesn't have enough trust in his teammates. Potentially, I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, I could agree with that, to be fair, because I mean, if you did trust your teammates more, you'd give them, more opportunities. But I feel like he believes in himself a lot more than he believes in everyone else, and you can see that in the amount of shots he's putting up compared to everyone else, the amount of points he's putting up compared to everyone else. Obviously, that plays a part of like he is just better than them, like truthfully, but also like he does like need to implement some more like trust into those guys because they will probably show him some help, and then that will actually help Miami cross the line. But until that happens, until he starts to believe in them, he will be the only one putting up shots for a reason.
Hmm.
It'll be because he's not giving anyone else the opportunity to put up shots, and that's probably a main factor into why they lost game two.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, you
right.
could say that, but I feel like when you're coming up against a Boston team who have shot in this
Mm.
game too over 50% from the field, 50% from 3 point land, I feel like sometimes
It's hard to
it's a
compete with.
case of,
Yeah,
you know, you just have to accept that they had a good shooting night.
yeah, true.
And obviously you've got to be going into these next two games now knowing that you've got to pick up
Mm.
one of these games. You know, I go off an ethos in the playoffs saying, especially when it comes to the latter stages, you can never really judge how a playoff series is going to go after two games, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
100%. I mean,
Maybe earlier on when there is a gulfing class between, say, the first seed and the eighth seed,
yeah.
and the first seed takes the first two games pretty convincingly.
Mm.
You know, we saw it Miami, Atlanta, maybe.
Yeah.
You think in Miami are probably going to steamroll this. When it comes to the playoff semifinals or the playoff, or the playoff, the conference playoff, the conference semifinals or the conference finals, it is more of a case of you got to really judge it after about 4 games potentially after the visiting team in the first 2 games have got them 2 games at their home court
Mm.
to see how they push on with that. I mean, I feel like we'll talk about Phoenix Dallas, but I feel like we were quick to discard Dallas
100%.
after the first 2 games. We were quick to say that they were just, you know, probably going to lose in about 5.
Mm.
But they went and they dominated at home in the end. And well, in the end they ended up winning in 7. I think Miami probably are going to be a bit annoyed that they dropped that game at home, but If they go out there and play like everybody knows that they can play,
Mm-hmm.
nick a game at the TD Garden, and go back to Miami with the home court advantage again, that's where it starts. That's where you need to kick on. That's where your big players need to step up. That's where
100%.
someone other than Jimmy Butler needs to drop 20 or so.
100%. And he'll know that, and they will know that too, because like they will be seeing all of this and think, okay, we need to step up now if we as a team want to do well. But like I said, I feel like them now going in a one-all series to the Garden, I think that's going to be tough for them. I think they could be coming back 3-1 down with the
And
way
that's where it
Boston
gets
play.
worrying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once it gets 3-1, it's hard to come back from that. Like, not many teams are going to do that. Jimmy will be phoning LeBron and he will be asking for tips because, I mean, Boston, their home crowd know how to get the team winning. And that will be dangerous because, especially if you're Miami, you know, after 2 games, you're going to a tough place to play. You'd want to get there 2-0 up and then not, which is quite. They will have that in their mind, and that will be like a scary thing for them. And I mean, we'll see how that one plays out. But to be honest, I can see Boston coming to Miami 3-1 up.
Well, before the series started, we were talking. You put Miami through in 7. Do you still think that there's potential that could happen, or
Maybe, I mean, I hope so because that would make for a good series. But it just it largely um depends on the way these two Boston
yeah,
games
yeah?
play out. But I'm quite confident that Miami probably won't take it in 7. I feel like they'll probably drop 2 games in Boston probably.
I'm still confident in Boston in 6 personally.
Yeah, and that could happen too. I'm not even gonna lie, I could back that because mainly because of the way they play at home, and I feel like
Yeah,
they'll just get that confidence to just carry on.
yeah. Well, we'll move over to the West now, and I've got 3 words that I'm pretty sure will definitely hype you up right now. Game 6, Clay.
Game 6, Clay.
I
That was so
mean,
sick. That was so sick, that game.
look, I give hate to Clay. Well, I wouldn't say hate, but I critique Clay.
Mm.
I've said that Jordan Poole's the rightful second guy. Clay's made me eat my words, and I gotta give props for that.
I mean, a lot of people, like I saw people on Twitter and Instagram and stuff being like, "Oh, is Game 6 Clay loading?" Because we know he can do it, and yes, he can. He can do it, and that was crazy from him. Like the way he just turned up and showed out, like was mad.
Yeah,
But I guess that shows like the levels that they are at Golden State in terms of like Steph is obviously the number one guy, but if Steph doesn't do it, you've got Clay who's the number two guy. And if he can't even do it, you've now got Jordan Poole who's the number three guy. And I think in terms of scoring, they're probably now the best team in the league by a
yeah.
mile. I don't think anyone's scoring like them. And the way they just smoked, the Grizzlies in that game 6, kind of, if you're, and obviously the Mavs have a lot of confidence right now, as they should. But even then, if you're Mavs, you're thinking, damn, we're gonna have to pull something out of the bag to beat these guys. And I
This
mean,
is still a championship dynasty for the next
yeah, it really is
two,
like
3 years.
because obviously they've still got the big three in Draymond, Steph, and Clay. But then also, if you look at the young core as well, they're really building some amazing players right now. You look at Jordan Poole, Gary Payton, James Wiseman, like Andrew Wiggins. Like they're building some. I didn't want to sneak Andrew in there, but he's still he's still
No,
doing
no,
some
I
he's
respect
doing
it. I
some
respect
things. I mean, he is
it.
an all star, really. If we're being honest.
All Star Andrew.
But I mean, if you look at that young core, that's strong, and
Yeah.
then they're obviously now playing with some of the best of this generation. Like
Mhm.
they're gonna be a amazing team for the next 10 something years. Like
Yeah.
they aren't gonna be like one of them that were amazing and then they felt like they're gonna continue to be up there. And I guess that, like me and you touched on, I think it was the last episode. That's kind of credit to Steve Kerr and his coaching because we thought, oh, he's just got an amazing team. That's why he's winning. But then when he got COVID and the other guy stepped in, it wasn't really happening for them. So I guess you got to give props to him for that. And if it continues to stay there for the the latter stages and for years and years, then Golden State are going to continue to look scary. But as of right now, they're in the conference finals and they went up as well.
So what's next for Memphis, do you reckon? Because obviously they've had such a good year this year. They're going to see... I mean, as much as coming below the second seed will probably be seen as a potential failure for them, given that it's worse than what they got this year, do we think that just getting themselves into that top six, locking themselves a playoff spot without going through the play-in, is a good season for them next season? Or do we reckon that they're going to be trying to make some moves to add them maybe a center, like a solid center, that can back up Steven Adams, or come in for Steven Adams when they need to play a certain type of way that Steven Adams obviously can't play? You know, we saw him not play at all pretty much against the Timberwolves. Hardly played against the Warriors. When he did, the Grizzlies were heavily out-rebounded.
Yeah.
Do we reckon that Memphis are going to run it back with the same core maybe? Or do you reckon that they're going to try and go out there and perhaps pick up, I'm thinking, I don't know, like a DeAndre, and if their cap space allows it, obviously he's a free agent this year.
I mean, you could look at it in two ways. Like, they know they have the core to do it again and probably make top six next year. But also now they know they can actually, like, give some fight against the big guys. I mean, they took Golden State to 6
Yeah,
games.
taking Golden State to 6, and
That's crazy.
and not having Ja Morant out for most of that is obviously
100%.
That's a proud achievement for them here.
It is, and because if at the start of the year, nobody would have thought they would have made it that far. No one would have seen Grizzlies making 6 games into the semi-finals against the Golden State. No one would have seen it. So for them, this is a very, very successful year, and it's going to be hard for them to like replicate it with just the same core, because everybody else is going to build their teams. If they just stay the same, they're going to fall victim to like a bit of a decline compared to everyone else, because everybody always builds every year. Everyone sees the things that they didn't do well and then they build on it. So that's what they need to do. They need to see, okay, we did really well, but what didn't we do well on? And they need to build on that, because they have now cemented themselves in the conversation of people that can put up a big fight against the big guys, or more, you could say that they have become the big guys. Like, they've become a part of that conversation. Like, if
I
you
still
look
potentially see them as an underdog for next year.
yeah, definitely. But like, if you're looking at the teams in like the bottom 5, like there'll be some teams they won't want to play. They won't want to play Golden State. They won't want to play the Suns. Now you could also say they don't want to play Memphis.
Yeah,
And
okay, that's fair.
I think they've put themselves in that conversation. And like, when you're the bigger teams, when you're the Warriors, the Suns, etc., you're gonna think, oh man, we're going to Memphis now. We need to turn it up. We need to,
Yeah.
And I think this year they did that, but they need to build on, like you said, they need to build on the center position, I think, and they need to do a little bit more, because they're gonna want to run it back next year the way they did this year, because I think they did really well and they can do it again.
Yeah, they need to teach Jaren Jackson Jr. to stay out of foul trouble for more than 2 minutes on an NBA court is what they need to do. And I think maybe he could be their center going forward.
Potentially.
You
I
know,
think this is one thing they
could
need to
tie
work on. Like, where is everybody going to like play a part next year?
But I think definitely, because their core is so young,
Yeah.
get Dylan Brooks, Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, get a year more under their belts. We've seen Ja Morant explode, get most improved player this year. Maybe next year you can go into potentially an MVP caliber style player. I think maybe if they run it back next season, it won't be a bad season for them. It'll still be a good season for them. But yeah, I do feel like they maybe need to get that one more addition.
Yeah.
At center.
100%.
They're gonna be so obviously. Golden State are going through to the finals. We're not seeing the Phoenix Golden State matchup, which a lot of people potentially wanting to see. That's because Phoenix probably had one of the worst game 7s I think I've ever seen.
It has to be the worst.
how are you gonna let any team come to your court game 7 and blow you out by 33?
That game was crazy, and I remember I was actually texting you the whole time. You were asleep, and I was like, "Sam, you need to wake up. You are missing this." Every time something happened, I just updated him. On my days, Luka has more points than the Suns. What is going on? It's
Yeah, the
the
first
third
half, yeah,
quarter,
Luka
and they
had
have
more points than
37
the
points.
Suns.
What
Yeah,
is going on? It was
yeah,
it was crazy. Like because I switched it on in the second, and I was like, "Damn, these guys are getting beaten right now." But in the second quarter, you're not like thinking, "Oh, it's done." And then it's like 2 minutes into the third quarter, and I'm like, yeah, there is absolutely no way the Suns are winning this game. Like,
hmm
and it got so bad, like almost as soon as the fourth quarter started, they just put out a whole fresh five and let them finish the game. So in pretty much, they had pretty much a quarter to play, and they gave up. That is, they got beaten that badly. They gave up when they still had 12 minutes to play. And 12 minutes is big in basketball. Like a lot can change in 12 minutes.
yeah. But a 40-point lead is also big in basketball.
It is. But it's crazy that they gave up that in a game 7 too. It's like it's just so mad. But I honestly, out of all the things I expected in that game, that was never ever one of them. I really did not see that happening.
No,
And I mean, that's who do we put the blame on? Do we say Luka's amazing, or do we say D-Book, Chris Paul, you guys choked it?
bit of
Like,
both. I'd personally say. I'd
because
personally also say that Luka had major help from the guys around him. Jalen Brunson, 24 points. Spencer Dinwiddie off the bench with a 30 piece.
100%.
You know, he played like he wanted that he needed like he got like a 300k bonus if the team made the conference finals. He gets like
Mm.
a 200k bonus or something like that if the team makes the finals, and then he gets a $1 bonus if the Mavs win the NBA. I want to know how that contract negotiation went down. I can't
I
lie.
feel like that was just like so they gave him all that, but then they didn't really expect to in the NBA. Like, oh, if you win the NBA, we'll give you $1, and he was like, yeah, okay.
So, talk to me a little bit about Patrick Beverly and his
Oh
comments.
my god. What I want to
Chris
know, and
Chris Paul had 4 very bad games in a row.
mm,
He did deserve to be called out on it, but I can't lie. I don't know what Chris Paul did to Patrick Beverly. Maybe he said something to him. Maybe
I,
he crossed him up a little bit. Last time that they played.
I mean, I don't know who. Like, I don't get me wrong. Patrick Beverly is not a bad player, but he's not amazing either, and I I think he thinks he's like the Dennis Rodman of this generation or something like, but he's not. And I think it was Dame that called him out, and he really said, "Who are you to talk about CP like this? This is okay." And don't get me wrong, CP's like performance this series was shocking, and he knows that. We
Yeah,
know that,
yeah,
but we also know that's not CP. Like the guy's been amazing for 15 years. Are we
yeah,
really gonna put one series over his head? No.
yeah,
I mean, the guy got to the finals last year as well, but
yeah.
Patrick Beverly, like the guy went crazy on him. It was the one where he said, "Oh, if I'm playing CP the night before, I'm having steak and going out. But if I'm playing Steph the night before, I'm going to sleep at 8 p.m. and tell my mama not to call me." Like, bro, what
And
was
then
the
I'm
need
pretty
to
sure I'm
just?
pretty sure someone did a few like digging out. I'm pretty sure Chris Paul dropped like 30 on him the last time that they
Yeah,
played the Timberwolves.
someone sent that and said CP against Patrick Beverly was like 37 points or something like.
Yeah,
And CP doesn't really get that many points in a game. So that's
no,
kind of like,
no,
maybe you shouldn't be having that steak the night before the game, Patrick. I'm not gonna lie. You shouldn't be having that steak, bro, because it's not
no.
working.
Maybe there was just something in the stick that just made him bad at
It was a
basketball.
flu game. It was a
It was
flu
it
game.
was the flu game. So do we reckon that Chris Paul is going to get a ring? He has come out and said that he's in the gym the day after. He's gonna try and run it back next season.
That makes me.
DeAndre Ayton's a free agent
They
and
need to keep him. They need to
has
keep him.
expressed discomfort about being at the Suns. He wants a bigger role potentially. I mean, I think I've seen things about him wanting like a like a upwards of about 170, 180 million contract over
Wow.
about 4 years. So he wants to get paid, and
They
with
need to pay him.
with 2 stars already, um, in Booker and Paul, do we think that the Suns front office are going to want to do it? Who
And they
knows?
need to. They need to pay him because if they don't, they're not running it back. The truth. The truth is they're not running
We
it back.
said that they weren't going to run it back last season, and then they went and they ran it back more, and then they ran so fast that they just ran out of steam before they actually got
But
to
this
where they
is
needed to be.
but this is obviously then they'll be losing out on players. Big players. DeAndre Ayton is a big player.
Yeah,
And missing someone like that would highly detriment them in
but
terms of in any chance of running it back.
yeah,
And I want them to give it one more shot because
yeah.
CP saying I'm back next year makes me think that next year's his last year. And I don't know if I'm ready for CP to retire without a championship. I don't know if I'm ready to see that. So as much as I have a lot of love for teams like Golden State and the Knicks, even though they will not do anything,
Why have you said that, man?
I just, I got a lot of love for these teams. I want Suns to do it next year
Yeah.
because CP has made me think that it's his last year. Because I feel like if he won this year, he might have retired. And I don't think I'm ready to see CP retire yet because he does not have that ring. And DeAndre, he must know, like CP is the guy. Everyone wants him to get a ring. He must think, okay, I need to stay and I need to help him get this ring. And then let him leave. Let him go wherever he wants. Because once they've got the ring, they can disband. The Suns can become a joke team. And they can all go wherever they want to go because CP, once he's done it, like that's it. That's what every NBA fan,
Yeah.
bar Patrick Beverly, wants to see happen.
Yeah,
But
true.
I mean, I need that because I cannot see CP like I've already, you know, like kind of started to live with the fact that Derrick Rose is going to have to retire without a chip, and that's not okay with me. And if CP also becomes that guy, I will not be happy. I will
No.
definitely not let that
Well,
happen.
yeah. Well, he's not going to win a chip this year, because Dallas knocked him out. They're facing Golden State. Golden
Yeah.
State was like, you guys are the underdogs. There's potential that you guys could cause an upset, but we ain't gonna let that
We ain't letting
happen.
that happen.
Yeah,
And
they.
as good
I'll,
as the Mavs were in that semi-final series, I just do not think they have it in them to war against the Golden State. Like,
yeah, I mean, potentially saying the same thing that I said about the Celtics game too.
mm,
Golden State had a very good game.
yeah,
10 players, 7 players with 10 points or more. So 7 points in double digits. They locked Luka up well, made him shoot 33%. Luka's shooters weren't doing bits either. Jalen Brunson didn't have a great game. Dinwiddie did all right off the bench. But yeah, ultimately, Luka didn't have the best game that we know that Luka can have.
100%.
Luka is a monster. And I
Yeah,
feel like
he's a beast.
he ain't gonna have 2 bad games in a row, although we did say that about Chris Paul. But he ain't gonna have 2 bad games in a row, in my opinion. Just maybe next time, don't go out for beers in Golden State before the game. Did you see that picture?
I did.
Golden State of Luka, I think it was Boban, and it was a very, very nice picture of just, him enjoying himself before the game, and then he went and got smoked. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Pretty much, Dallas. What you wanted to do? You wanted to get to Game 6, with you being in the lead because you're gonna lose that because of Game 6 clear.
Mm.
And then once you get to Game 7, it's you going through because Luka Doncic averages like 57 points in Game 7s. So
He averages the amount of points the other team gets.
yeah. So I mean,
I
again, like I said, I mean, even after one game, you can't
Yeah,
judge a conference
you
final off of
cannot.
one game, even though Golden State did win it by like almost 30. You can't judge it off of one game. Game 2's tonight. I do think it might be more of the same. Probably not as big of a blowout as it was, but surely Golden State have to go 2-0 up tonight.
I believe that, and like I said to you, I think Golden State are gonna hit it in 5. I would say 4, but I'm not going to because I think Luka will probably take not game 2 but game 3. and then
Okay.
I think after that they'll be like, okay, it's time to go back to sleep now. We let you take one game in the middle, but in the end they're gonna get smoked. And I mean, no matter what, even if Mavs got swept, they're still looking at this as probably, in fact, no, it will be the best season since Dirk left.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like I
And
said, they hadn't got past the first round since Dirk
yeah,
left.
and then all of a sudden they went to the finals. Like,
Yeah.
and Luka will now be thinking, wow, I think now he'll be like, because obviously we spoke a lot about how Luka needs more help and stuff, and I think maybe we kind of slept on his help because his help have been helping him, and maybe that would give him like some confidence, thinking, you know what, actually my teammates are like pretty good, and obviously like they still need some additions, like because now they can say, okay, you know what, we can fight against the big guys. Obviously not on, I don't think on the same level as Memphis, simply because
Hmm.
Memphis did it all year round,
Hmm.
but they can still like challenge them big guys, and all they need is maybe one or two more additions. What they are, I don't know, but then that's what they need, and they'll know that even before going into the series. Like, because I genuinely think I don't think they can challenge the Warriors right now, which is why they need one or two more additions to then, like, if they go, like, let's say they run this series back next year with a couple more players, then you're thinking actually it's an even contest, or maybe even a bit more sided towards the Mavs because of whatever they've acquired.
Well, I mean, yeah, we were both saying exactly the same thing about the Phoenix game. That Luka will probably take one game, but it will probably be Phoenix in five, and ultimately Dallas knocked him out. Potentially, it could happen again.
Nah, I
Remember
don't think
what
it can.
I've said? I've said from day. You can go back about five,
Episode one.
six. Probably not episode one, no, but about five, six episodes ago when we were reviewing the playoffs, and we were talking about potential playoff matchups with the Jazz, the Warriors, and the Mavs, with like where they'd finish in the playoffs. And I said this. I said that I personally feel like the only team that can beat Golden State in the West in a 7-game series are Dallas. Dallas, man, don't let me down. If this happens, I'll look like the biggest brain in NBA history.
I can say, as a big fan of our podcast here, I don't remember this. I hope that I believe you. I do believe you. I don't
I'm
remember
gonna
it.
search through the archives of the weekend, and I
That's
will
fine.
I
You
will
can.
find it out. I
You, in
will show
fact, you know
you.
what you can do at the start of next episode. You can put that clip in there.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
right at the start. In fact, you know what? You can put it in right now.
No, I mean I don't have the time for that.
I ain't doing that. I
I
ain't
got
doing that, big
I got
fella.
revising to do, man. I don't have time for
But at the
that.
start of next episode, you can put the clip. You can even put some ominous music to show how right you were.
Yeah,
And I can see, because I want to see that you were right. And if that happens, well, they need to give my guy Sam a spot on that TNT panel. You
inside the
can
NBA.
you can put him right in
Moonsie, get
between.
out of here.
No, forget those guys. We need to put Sam right in between Shaq and Ernie.
Okay,
So we've got Ernie, then we've got Shaq. Sam's in the middle. There's plenty of space because Ernie's quite a slim guy, so obviously Shaq takes up like half the panel. But then you got some space for my boy Sam. If this is correct, anyway, if this
sure,
happens,
sure.
that would be crazy. Because Shaq never hit us up after I did an impression of
No,
him. I don't think he was. I don't think he's happy with us right now.
no.
So this might
Look,
put us.
maybe one last thing before we end it. Maybe we should say, Shaq, Rudy Gobert ain't gonna lock you up. Please like us again now.
That's two centers I did an impression of.
Did it? What the hell? How coincidental.
We have to think of someone else for next episode.
Maybe leave a comment on what center you want Sully to impersonate next
Imagine
episode.
Embiid is like, do me. Like,
Sure, he'll just show up crying next episode. Anyway, yeah, I think like I said, it'll be next week where we'll be able to speak with more detail into the conference finals. There won't be as much to talk about, which means I think next week I want to maybe talk with you about who we want to be in our All NBA teams.
We can do that.
Maybe we should get a bit of predictions in on that.
100%.
In before the All NBA teams will be announced on Tuesday, and we'll have had time to record it.
Yeah,
But
you just know that's gonna happen as well. That always happens. So remember, we were like, "Oh, we'll predict all the the awards," and then half the awards came out. Like, we were like, "Well, what the hell?" Like,
well, let's hope that this doesn't happen. Adam Silver, delay it.
Adam
Please.
Silver, man, please. We know you watch this podcast. He doesn't watch. His son probably watches. Adam Silver's son, if you're watching this, tell your dad to wait. One more week.
Yeah.
Then release all
for our
NBA.
predictions. So
look at our predictions, put them in.
Yeah, and then we'll look so sick, and then we'll both be in between Shaq and Harden.
I'll be next to Chuck and
Kenny.
I forgot his name.
Oh no, poor Kenny.
He's not gonna let me sit next to him now. I'm gonna have to sit on the left of Chuck.
Anyway, I don't know if it's Kenny Smith in it.
Kenny Smith.
Kenny the Jet. Now. Yeah.
See, I remember his nickname. There you go. I'm his friend again.
Yeah. He just DM'd me. He was like, "Yeah, it's Aaliyah right now."
You're valid. You're valid again.
Anyway, I think we're kind of going on a tangent. We'll bring it back. I think we'll close it.
Yeah.
By saying thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Beyond the Arc. If you liked it, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure you follow in all our socials down in the description. That's what I'll do. If I find the Dallas clip, I'll put it on the TikTok. And I'll be like, this is what I said 2 months ago.
And that's valid. That's very valid. So you know what you need to do? You need to follow the TikTok.
Exactly.
You can see that Sam was either right or he's waffling.
And I would say if it ain't there, then I'm just a big liar. So
no, if it ain't there, then he's going to post a video saying, "Guys, I was really wrong. I apologize." So
no, what I might do, I might just like deep fake myself over myself, just saying this, and then have you just like I'll just like randomly cut a clip of you saying, "Yeah, I agree with that." just over it, yeah. Anyway, yeah, make sure you're following us all over the social. Make sure you're sharing it out, no matter what you're listening on. And me and Sully will see you guys next week, where the conference final will hopefully be drawing to a close, potentially. We'll see you guys then. Peace.